Okay, it's 6:30, we're going to get started. Let's see now. What we're going to do first is vote on the report from last week regarding the Public Works and Town Highway Department that Jim and Jim brought to us last week. I'm sure everybody read it over. Is there any questions? Yes.
I have one. On the subcommittee report, there's mention that duplications in machinery, when identified, would be resolved by selling that machinery. Does the subcommittee have any identified items that they would recommend selling up front so that then that could be used against whatever deficit there may be for the village?
Yeah. What kind of equipment is this?
You know, what do you got? Have you got a backhoe or a loader or a post-hole digger?
We got two payloaders. They're $250,000, $300,000 a piece.
Two side mowers.
Two side mowers. A lot of the village stuff is pretty much antiquated as far as a couple of pieces. You really don't know. I mean, the critical thing is in the snow and ice removal. You know, we're both under the same barn. Village is at the west end, Lyons is at the town Lyons at the east end. So I don't see if that's the critical use of the payloader. I don't see why you can't load the town trucks and just scoot down and load the village trucks right, 100 yards, not even 100 yards, 100 feet away.
Right.
So, but you don't. I think we want to keep the equipment until we can really sit down and weed it out.
Well, it's my understanding the village equipment, most of it is not in very good shape and it really doesn't have much value.
The payloader and the backhoe.
Yeah,
Those are two new
the payloader and the backhoe.
Right, but other than that,
And the other
most
thing,
of the trucks aren't anything to write home about.
and the other thing we looked at is the backhoe's in good shape. It has a front end loader. Most of your town trucks are 6-wheel dumps, not 10-wheel dumps. So a backhoe could fill those just as good as that.
Right.
So you might want to use the backhoe instead of the payloader. That's the big item. That's one of the big items.
So is that the main use for the payloader, is loading sand and salt?
They do the brush removal. They do
Snow pickup.
Really do leaves,
yeah,
brush,
leaves and
Snow
stuff.
removal.
hauling gravel up and down the road.
No.
No.
So long story short, you don't have anything identifiable at this time that you could say, I've got $100,000 that we're going to reduce. You're hoping that as it shakes out, you'll identify duplication.
The only way it looks down the road, and it looks with every committee down the road, is when you get into the renegotiation for the help, when they come over to the town.
Yeah. Well, that's already been settled,
Yeah, it's been
according
settled.
to so
As far as the highway,
personnel is staying the same except for possibly some part-timers would go.
yeah, part-timers.
Okay, right, part-timers would go. And other than that, other than the health savings, there really wasn't much in the report to show that there's going to be a huge savings in dollars and cents.
Well, there was $62,000.
Well, but that, we already figured that 240,000 for the whole
Yeah.
village coming over, so that's just part of that. Right. So is there any other discussion about that report? Any questions or additions?
The striping, it said yearly, the striping is $6,662 and $8,000. Does that include both village and town striping, or is it just?
That was just, as my recollection, that was just the village. The striping, it's all done by the county. And usually, on the roads.
On the roads.
And the striping
sidewalks.
is usually every 2 years. That's what the county does.
So it's not a total cost of $14,662 for a year. In this particular fiscal year, we spent $6,662, and in next year and previous years, we budgeted $8. So it isn't one
Well, it
fiscal.
says bi-yearly, 66, 62, and 8,000, so bi-yearly would be every 2 years. Right?
Bi-yearly for the total amount?
Right,
Or
right.
for,
Bi-yearly, they do 666, 2, and 8,000. So it's not an annual,
it's annual.
Well, it might be annual for the parking spaces. I don't know how you do that, or the,
No, the amount that is budgeted there is for the county being able to do the streets.
but they don't do it every year, do they?
They did last year, some of it. And then there's quite a bit that needs to be done this year. That's why the 8,000.
yeah, but it's not the same roads. It's a different.
No,
road.
no,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. We do them
not
every 2
complete.
years.
All right,
And especially those that we've done some paving, then they may
Right.
need to be striped, so you have to budget for it.
Well, we left that strictly the same, so, you know, I mean, we didn't
Oh, I'm
change that
only
or nothing.
asking for clarification. Are you saying that this was 1 year's total or this past fiscal year versus next fiscal year? Because we haven't been spending 14,000 in one particular year.
all right, so it's 66, 62 1 year and 8,000 the next.
Yeah, this
All right.
past fiscal year, we spent 66, 62.
All right. Any other comments? I move we accept the report as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. And the only reason I'm voting no is because of the last page with the hospitalization for $5,000. The
Okay.
reduction in the savings is based on the fact that it is a hospitalization saving. That's my reason for voting no.
All right.
And I would like to, if my name is included, I'd like to be shown as an abstention, please.
All right. Very good. Well, the public safety provided 2 items last week. One was the animal control service. And I was wondering if there were any, that was only a half-page item. Is anybody interested in making any amendments to the animal control?
I thought we approved that last week.
We approved the, ambulance in the past, so we have to vote on, since it was presented, I don't believe we voted on it, so. We did vote?
Voted on it.
Oh,
I got
okay.
approved.
All right, so it is voted on? Okay. Then we don't have to worry about that. Okay, I understand there's some changes to the fire department recommendations.
And the police department is going to-
Well, let's do the, you have a copy for everyone?
Yep.
Are we both on the same,
Yeah, they're both on the same thing.
you see these ones?
Well, I'd like to go on record that these changes to the fire department, I don't know where they came from because I did not participate in a meeting that had discussions of this.
Do you want one for Brian? Maybe for
Mm-hmm.
Brian.
I understand that, chief, and
What?
Okay, well, let's go over it first, the fire department. Jim, do you want to
yeah,
present
it's
it?
pretty, it's, you know, I mean, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. The fire department will become a district, which would probably become all volunteers. If the new commission, when the commissioners are set up, if they want to do 24/7 coverage, this is what we recommend. We recommend that we go to part-time employees, 6 to 8 workers at $12 an hour. Now, there's 8,736 hours in a year. And at $12 an hour, it comes to $104,832. The current budget now is $150,894, almost $151,000. So the savings in salaries would be approximately $46,000, plus the benefits, which would be $34,558, which is total savings of $80,620. Now, you have to remember when it becomes a district that there's certain guidelines that a district by state law is budgeted. They go by assessed valuation, and you're almost dictated what the budget's going to be. Okay, according to the tax, it's going to be on the tax roll like the library. The other reason we talked about it is if you do 6 to 8 part-timers, it gives everybody in the firehouse a chance to earn a little more money. They're making $8 an hour now. $12 an hour is what it crunches out to, and that's at $104,832. So.
Jim, did you have this meeting by yourself, or?
No.
Is there a reason that you didn't invite me to it as chairman of the committee?
I asked you today if you wanted to go. I thought, wait a minute, let's go back to square one here. You made 2 presentations. The last meeting, we had these figures on the table. Okay, all handwritten. You didn't want to budge. I mean, you're saying we're here to, wait a minute, let me finish. We're here to look to save money. Okay, I put the 4 men on the police force, the 4 part-timers. I put the fire department. The only thing you wanted to cut was the overtime at $22,000. We had other stuff on there. And then Sergey, after you made your presentation, Sergey asked to go back.
We're talking about fire department now.
Yeah, I understand. We had figures in the fire
And
department.
as I recall, and if I am wrong, Jim, please correct me, the fire department, we made a report. We being a consensus of 3 members on the public safety subcommittee. We made that report. That report was received by the committee. That was the report that we had agreed on last week. That was the report we presented last week. Now you come up with some different report?
Hold it. I thought we were supposed to go back and...
No. The police department was the one we were supposed to go back on because there was no report issued. What you should have done last week is after it was presented, you could have given an option and bring it up before the committee last week instead of bringing it as a whole new thing this week. Because the committee accepted your report last week and no one, you and Brian, sat there and let that go completely.
Well,
neither one of you made a comment. So if you want to bring up, we haven't voted on the fire department, so it's fine for you to bring up options, and that's what you're doing. We have the original report from last week, which everybody saw, which was basically keeping things as they are now. This report, this is an option that you're bringing forward, which is perfectly reasonable. Anybody can make comments to a subcommittee's report. I could do it, you could do it, Jim could do it, whatever. So, our basic report last week was to leave everything as it was.
Except for the overtime.
This week you're bringing in an option where you would have 6 to 8 part-time workers who would cover the 24 hours a day. And would they have the same rights as they do now, whereas if there's a fire, they could drive the fire truck to the fire?
You would pick the part-timers, would be all certified drivers. that would be a, a prerequisite. And I'm sorry Brian's not here, because we both went over this. And
All right, well, what do the other committee members feel?
I have a couple of questions on this new proposal.
Yep.
Is that where we're going?
Yes, that's where we are right now, we're at the fire department.
You just answered the one, between the 6 and 8 part-time people, there would be 24-hour coverage.
yes,
My other questions, a couple questions, just quickly here. The coverage for all the non-emergency calls, I don't know how the training goes for the hazardous calls. And there was like, when they do I'm calling them non-emergencies, not the fire, but the hazardous accidents.
the EMT
They
type
go
things.
to someone's house, carbon monoxide. All of those people are trained. All the part-time people would be trained to do those kind of services.
yeah, most of everybody has all the strength.
Okay. And my last question
Unless
is,
I'm-
if the commissioners, you said if the commission wants the 24, we recommend this. What if the commissioners say, no, we want to keep it as is?
That's fine too. That's fine too.
But that's- but
Nothing
then that's
actually
a different
happens.
cost involved.
Well, I went on the budget that is now.
Okay,
The budget is 150,000.
correct.
Okay. If the commissioners want to keep that,
Uh-huh.
and if the formula works out that's enough money to do it,
Okay,
that's fine too.
okay.
So, we're going to go through a transition here where it's going to be, when it comes over to the town board, they'll appoint the first, and then the rest of them are elected.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
and it might be more, they might actually have more money to deal with. So, I just crunched these numbers as far as the budget.
Right, okay. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I would say as a point of order, if we are operating anywhere near a parliamentary procedure, there is a report accepted by the committee, and it's on the table for a vote.
No,
Now, I would
no.
say before we voted on a new proposal, we would have to vote down the existing proposal.
we're not working with parliamentary procedure. A, this is an informal committee. B, what we did was we had a report issued, and we wait a week, and then we discuss it to see if we want to vote upon it. And when this is up for discussion for the committee to talk about. So we can even table this for another week so that everybody can go
Or
through
we
the
could
figures.
Vote on both reports and see if
Right.
you want to accept one over the
Right,
other,
we
or
can
what
do-
is the procedure we're
Right, we
following?
can do that today. So what we can do is we can discuss this and say, this is another option. And we can, if people feel strongly that they want to go with the option over the original, we can vote on that. So I want discussion. I want other people to talk. John,
I have an idea for you.
right,
Through attrition, it is possible that one of these paid drivers right now might be able to go through, if it's passed through the state and the village board agrees to it, one can go out at 20 years. That is called attrition. Right now, I think he probably made last year with everything, he probably made close to $61,000 or $62,000. Plus his benefits would probably be a family plan, I'm assuming, because he has little children. So that's roughly $15,000 to $18,000. Well, 61 and 18 is what? $80,000. So it's roughly what Mr. Brady was saying with the $80,620 in the total savings. My recommendation, and I'm strongly behind this, is we have one full-time officer, fire department driver, in the fire department, and the rest part-time. And you could drop it from a $12 an hour part-timer down to $9, and you'll have a bigger savings than you propose right here.
now what's the situation as far as, right now the fire chief controls the training. Once it becomes a fire district, the fire commissioners are in charge of, training, overseeing the training.
governmental part of it and the spending of it.
right, well, I know they're in
The
charge of the
bookkeeping
spending.
and the accounting would still be done by the volunteers because they make their own money. But the fire commissioners would oversee, if there is a payroll, the payroll the insurances,
All the costs.
upkeep, maintaining, basically everything that the village does now or the town would do if there wasn't a fire district, they would take over all responsibilities. But my suggestion is with one guy through
So
attrition.
you would have one fire chief, full-time.
One full-time driver in the fire department with the rest part-time, you would have probably a bigger savings than the 80,000. And it'll all be done through attrition.
My comment is when the attrition will start.
Well, I know that.
I agree with you.
Within 2 years.
I'm not disagreeing with you either, I'm just saying,
No,
that is another option.
I think that's a very reasonable
Yeah.
option. I think that we should have at least one full-time person at all time so that there's someone basically looked at as being in charge, a foreman or whatever. And I think it's very difficult to try to find all part-time drivers. I guess you don't have any trouble finding them now,
But
but there would be more part-timers if there was that one full-time that was gone. So, yes, Corinne?
I was just approached today by members of the fire department to perhaps appoint some new part-time people because the part-time people who are working now there isn't enough coverage from, I believe we have 6. And so we need additional people, and those additional people, of course, have to be trained
Right.
in the driving of the vehicles and all the other requirements.
I don't think
for-
part-timers is finding the trouble, is finding part-timers who work during the day.
Yeah,
All right.
Most
So,
people work outside the village.
What does it cost for training?
what does it cost for training? Most of it doesn't cost anything unless they're going to Montour Falls, because we have state fire training people, and it goes on most every weekend. And,
There's always training going on.
Yeah,
So-
there's always training.
what hours do the full-timers work? They work 24-hour shifts,
Yes,
the full-timers now? What if the full-timers were
Work
12-hour
8 to
shifts?
5,
Wow.
7 to 5, 7 to whatever. The majority of it would be during the day.
All right, then the part-timers should come on at night, evenings and nights.
Yes,
That's what you're recommending.
that's what I'm recommending.
What do you think, Jim?
Because if there's anything going on during the day, if there's salespeople or mechanics need to come fix trucks or whatever, you need somebody here that knows what's going on. If you have someone here for $8 an hour, it only works once a month, or, not degrading the part-timers because they all are very knowledgeable, but like you said earlier, moments ago, you need somebody that's in charge that knows what's going on fully, the full capacity of the fire department. It's a lot of equipment, a lot of money. It really should be the responsibility of one individual to oversee all that.
What do you think, Jim?
Run that by me again, John, about one person's going to retire, you see it?
Well,
Yes.
Run your scenario again, will you?
There's 2 full-time right now and part-timers. One of them could possibly go through attrition under the 20-year fireman's benefit,
Okay.
whatever it's called. If that is possible with that person to leave, right now I'm thinking he's making right around 61 or 62,000 a year plus benefits. That would equate to almost the same or a little bit more than his total. And if you lowered the $12 an hour down to $8.50 or $9 with the part-timers, you would see a savings. Probably be a little bit more than that with one full-time person overseeing the operation and part-timers covering weekends and nights.
Right. And you'd still be able to have a full-time driver here pretty much all the time then?
Yes.
I think it's very
Makes
important
sense.
that we continue with 24-hour coverage here in the village.
no
whether it's
one is
full or-
saying that we
I
shouldn't have
didn't say
that.
that. I said I think it's very important that we have 24-hour coverage, whether it's full-time people or part-time people.
What's
and
the
if we do-
status on Chuck's retirement?
He's the same as Brian Ritchie. I don't know whether Chuck's has come up for actually being approved in the Senate, in the Assembly. All the paperwork is there. It's simply a matter of their finalizing it. Hopefully, it will be approved here this month. But if it isn't, then we're going to be waiting until the fall. And I know then at that point, Chucky has his 20 years, I believe, in late fall or in that time frame. So he, of course, is planning on retiring at that point.
Can he retire at that point without the special legislation? Like, is it?
No.
No, it
He
was either
needs the
it was
special
either the
legislation.
20
No,
or
because
25
he's
year.
on a 25-year plan, and what we've asked is for him to be placed in the 20-year plan. Through many problems over the past years, he didn't get into them.
And the village has done this in the past with police
Right.
officers
So
that didn't fall into the
hopefully
20 year, they
the-
were in the 25.
that it's going to get passed. But we have to wait until they actually put their stamp of approval on it.
You know, if that individual's making that much now with the benefits, obviously the benefits gonna go up, the salary's gonna go up through their contract, so it's gonna be bigger than, you know. That's just my feelings. Sergey said, one of the comments I gave.
Well, it's a good point, I mean, you know.
Yep.
Can I make,
Sure.
just a suggestion? I mean, I'd be glad to review the numbers with the chief and John and go over it for next week. I mean, you're only, what, thousands of dollars apart, so. I just wanted to, I wanted to keep part-time, yeah, $8, but, I mean, you might get a little better caliber person.
Well, you might get more, you might not get better
And you get
caliber.
more
You get
activity.
more people who might be interested in
Sure.
making $12 instead of that. So,
So there's a little give and take there, that's all.
okay,
I could be wrong, but most of the people that are part-timers in situations with firehouses and stuff, they do it because they love the firehouse and they love the scene and the activity, and most of them are all volunteers, they all have the training, most of them might be lieutenants, captains, or past chiefs or whatever, so they're all active, and it's, you know, it's part of their lifestyle, so yes, everybody would like to make more money, but.
right. Okay, if you want to bring these numbers back for next week,
I mean.
unless you
again,
want to vote on it tonight.
That's up to the committee.
Well, it's up, right, it is up to the committee.
What was the difference between my number and John's number?
Well, John said it's approximately the same.
I'm
A
pretty sure.
$60,000
I
savings.
think you need to go back.
Yeah, we can go back and get the
actually
definite
figure it out.
numbers, but I'm probably within $500-600 or whatever on the numbers.
Okay.
I'm not sure what his health insurance is, but
Well,
from
for
what
that
we,
close, you
you
know.
know, you're talking $1,000 or $1,200 or $500, you know, it's,
Okay, because this is what I want to be done
Yep.
next week. Next week, we're going to be done, I hope. Because we got the police department, the fire department, and you.
And we had we had the controller there today, and there are so many questions. We gave them a list of the questions, and we got answers to some of them, but to some of them, we need to, they have to go back to their attorneys, they have to go back to the retirement system. Many of the questions can't be answered, so.
Are a lot of those things that were items for Diane and Connie for making the final cost? Or are there things that affect?
Yeah, for final costs, they will be, is where they go, how they're
So it's
distributed.
nothing the committee would be voting on. These are just things that the consultants need to come up with a final figure.
We probably could go, we have some direction. And I don't know if you want, I do have a couple of things, so when you're ready,
All right, well,
when you finish
yeah,
with this.
I've got you on the agenda,
Okay, good.
so we will do that. So I personally would like to see at least one full-time person on the fire department. One way that they can look at and say, okay, you're the boss. Because when you have all part-timers, you really don't know who the boss is. I know it's going to be the commissioners, but in day-to-day operations, it's nice if there's one person you can go to and say, all right, we need a decision today, what's going to happen. I think it's very important to have
Yeah.
a boss.
You know, and if, you know, the $80,000 saving, if John and I are not that far apart, and we still have the full-time 24/7 coverage, we'll work it out and get the final figure for next week.
All right, so we'll vote on, you'll come back with a final recommendation, and we'll plan on voting on it next week.
The bad part is I won't be here next week. I've got to be in New York City.
All right,
But Brian or the chief, I don't know, the chief is still on board or what?
Yeah.
I'm willing to discuss it.
yeah. So I think that this is a democracy, which means that plurality wins. So if the majority wins, so if the subcommittee can even vote, it would be better if it was 3-3 on, but if it's 2-3 and you bring it to the committee, we'll vote, and if we get a majority, that's what we're going to go with. So that's, you know, everybody, we are looking for savings, and as long as we can provide the service that we currently have, if we can save money, I'm all for it. But I just want to make sure that as long as you have 24/7 coverage by paid drivers, that's the most important thing to me. Because when there's a fire, you know, my son-in-law was just involved in one in Palmyra. They're all volunteers. He had to go to, there was a fire call. He had to go to the station. The truck couldn't leave the station for 20 minutes because they had to wait for enough people to be on the truck to go to the fire. Whereas with a paid, you can get a paid driver goes to the fire and the volunteers meet him. And
That's a policy thing up there, though.
yeah, well, it still makes a difference
Oh, yeah.
when you have paid people.
absolutely.
So I'm all for 24/7, but if we could save money, if you think that is a good recommendation, we'll vote on it next week. Okay.
I mean, the only difference between what John's saying is I had 24/7 with part-timers, and he has 24/7. I mean, you can't be 24/7 with a full-time guy all the time. You can't work that many hours.
Right,
But there'll be somebody here.
right.
So that's my opinion.
No, but, you know, John raises a valid point that you need at least one, even if it's business hours, the chief engineer, or whatever you want to call him, the head cook and bottle washer, as a go-to guy, a contact point.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that it's important to have someone here.
So nights would be part-time drivers? About that?
Yeah, basically, we're looking,
Weekends?
weekends would be part-time driver.
And a
Because
full-time driver
one of the
would be-
things we want to do is cut back on overtime.
Right.
So you can't have your one full-time man working 6 days a week. That would certainly defeat the purpose. So,
And that could be also reduced, you know, and, you know, if you're flipping and if you're trying to even out things and how, you know, do what we're doing, you could put clauses in there where, you know, that's it, overtime's at this amount, don't exceed it. So then it would limit the way, and, you know, you hate to say it, but there might be sometime, there might be a couple hours without somebody here. Well, you know.
John, do you think there's enough guys lined up to provide that coverage?
The part-timers?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, like the mayor says that there's people that want to be approved. Is there enough people lined up?
Well,
that
it's
wanna
always
do
been
it?
through, my knowledge, it's always been through the fire department, between the chiefs and the drivers, the foreman, always picked who the drivers were because of their training or their experience or knowledge, whatever it may be, so
And a lot of them, it's their availability, like on the weekends.
I would imagine there's some right now that haven't drove in years that are still on the list.
But also, if they're working 10-hour days, it's 4 days is 40 hours right there. So if you're looking at them to buy Monday through Friday, you're talking
Well,
part-time
well,
again, or you're talking part-time.
8 hours a
You
day,
need,
Right.
Monday through Friday.
yeah, if you do Monday through Friday, 8 hours, 9 to 5, have the
you
part-timers
need
other
to make
times.
sure that
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hours
Well-
are-
I mean, those are things you gotta figure out, you know, work out.
Scheduling.
but,
Scheduling, but
but as long as we're talking about 24-hour coverage, 7 days a week, that's that's what we're looking for. And, okay, so any other comments about the fire department? Okay, now we
Before you go
go,
on, I just gotta, okay.
okay, so next week we will get a final report on the fire department and we will vote on that. Police department. Jim?
Well, you want me to do it, or what do you want to say?
Well, first of all, I contacted the chairman, Mr. Barrel-Shaw, sir. I really ethically have come to the decision that I cannot make the recommendations for post-dissolution police services because you've got a two-edged sword. I believe whatever I would say that would promote higher levels of police services and say what you would recommend gives the appearance that it's self-serving and that therefore lacks credibility. On the same hand, I don't think that I should sit here and be a dissenter on the subcommittee. So I asked the chairman, Mr. Barashevitz, and I copied the committee members in here, that I would like to see the subcommittee proceed, the public safety subcommittee proceed, but the portion of it as it relates to recommendations for the police department, I feel that I have to abstain from that. And whatever you think is the appropriate arrangements to make so that the subcommittee can proceed, I guess I leave that to you.
Well,
I do not particularly want to abstain from the fire department or the animal
Right.
control or
No,
the
no.
ambulance or whatever, because I feel that I have worthwhile input on that.
Well,
But it would not be seen as self-serving, but.
well, you've had good input on everything that we've discussed so far, so, and I know you're an ethical person, so that there's not a problem with your recommendations for the police department. But I understand the predicament you're in, so as far as, we'll just leave the committee as it is, you'll recuse yourself from voting as a subcommittee member on the police portion of the subcommittee report. And we'll let Jim and Brian, they've been working on this along with you for the last
Forever.
6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. So we might as well let Jim bring forward his recommendations and we'll go from there.
Thank you for your understanding on that, Sergeant.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this was on the table last week at a discussion, and so Brian and I decided to go forward with your direction, that come back with some type of alternative, what do you want to call it? Alternative,
plan.
or, you know, a savings plan.
Right.
So, doing the numbers, my report reads as follows. We go to 4 full-time and 4 part-time officers. We can save approximately $220,000 in salaries on the full-time people, plus approximately $60,000 in hospitalization benefits and $40,000 when the 4 full-time employees come over to the town. The total savings would be approximately $320,000. This is before any type of job negotiating is done by the town for the new police force, and that has to be done during the transition. We can use the sheriff and the state police for backup when needed. Now, as for the clerk duties, presently their salaries are $34,900 and $32,000, which is $66,900. Proposed budget would be $33,450. what we wanted to do, that's $16.50 an hour, which comes to about $16,725 per person if they go to part-time at 20 hours apiece. New part-timers will, like I said, will make $16,725 for 20 hours per week. We wanted to try to integrate their job functions. So approximately savings in salaries is going to be $33,400 plus another $23,000 in benefits, and that comes to $56,886. You add that to the $320,000, and we come up with a total savings of $376,556. And I tried to break down the proposed 24-hour, 7-day coverage, which when you have that, it's 168 hours a week. 4 men at 40 hours a week is 160 hours. So you basically have 8 hours, but if you have 4 men at part-time at 20 hours a week, that gives you 80. So you're looking at 240. Presently, 8 full-time at 40 hours is 320. You know, the chief can probably say if it's going to work or not, but all I'm saying, if we go with a full-time, we could save for full-time, we could save the $220 in salaries and the benefits, $60,000 and $40 in saving in hospitalization when they come over to the town. These were all calculated on a rough estimate of $55,000. That's kind of like the base salary for the patrol guys a year. And you're going to have to negotiate with the union contract, so a lot of this stuff could vary. This is kind of what we propose, and if it does go this way to start, and the chiefs, you know, it's not working, you can add more full-time or more part-time as we go down the road. Now, one of the, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the history of this, why we got so large, my feeling is we had problems with some local taverns, Tom Jones, Shaker. We had Riverside, and I remember Riverside, the ambulance department would get several, I mean, over a period of 3 years, we had close to $30,000 that were ambulance calls that were unpaid for. So, I mean, at that time, I think we needed a force of that size. But at this time, I think we could do with the 4 full-time and 4 part-time.
So with your staffing, how many would be on at a time?
Well, there'd be one person there 24/7, and it depends. I mean, if we have peppermint days, I mean, you're gonna have to staff it with full-time and some part-times.
Well, is it your proposal that there be 8-hour shifts or 10-hour shifts?
Well, that's up to the chief. You try to explain it to me. Whether you want to do 4 10s or what was the other one?
Well,
5 8s.
my contention, and as an example, the town of Maston, which is somewhat representative of, you know, it's the only town police department in the county. They have 6 full-time officers. They have an assortment of part-time officers. Part-time officers are really, you know, on a police department, a part-time officer, the number of part-time officers you have is negligible because you either work them or you don't. They don't cost you when you don't work them. They do cost you X number of dollars per hour when you do work them, and other than having to do the minimum training requirements, which is firearms qualification and 8 hours of in-service, you don't incur an expense if you don't work them. So Masson has some part-timers that they use, and they have 6 full-timers. With that contingent, they cannot provide full-time service. And as an example here, you're looking at having part-timers work 20 hours a week. Do you propose getting part-time officers that are willing to work 4-hour shifts?
I just took 20 hours. I mean, part-time would be 30. Part-time would be anything.
No, you can't work over 20 hours as a part-timer,
Okay.
civil service.
Well, that's why I probably picked 20. Now, let me say this. Macedon has a lot bigger budget than the town of Lyons. They've got Walmart, Lowe's, $1 million a year from the landfill. They could probably put a guy on every corner. Clyde, on the other hand, their whole budget for the Clyde Police Force is $205,000. That's 1/5 of our budget.
But my argument, Jim, is that, all right, if you want to cut the police department, you want to cut the staffing on the police department, you can't represent that you are going to provide 24/7 coverage. If you want to represent that with this number of people that you are providing 16-hour coverage or no two-man coverage, then so be it. But you can't represent it and say that we're going to have 4 full-time officers and 4 part-time officers and provide 24/7 service. So I guess one of the questions you have to ask yourself, and the question that the committee has to ask themselves, do you want to provide 24/7 service? If the answer is no, then I guess you don't need too many cops. If the answer is yes, you better sit down and write up a schedule, be it part-time or full-time, so that you can see that you have somebody to work 24/7.
Also,
Well, we're looking at one person, and basically, you're not covering up.
Is that a safety issue?
Are you covering 2 people from 4 to midnight? Are we gonna have, and then one person for a midnight?
Right
day?
now, you know, and correct me, this is what the chief told us. The union contract says at, what is it, night?
4 in the evening,
4 in the
to
evening.
3 in the morning.
You have to have 2 people. That's the union contract now. I mean, you have to renegotiate that at the town level. All I'm saying, if you take 168 hours a week, I mean,
I understand, I see your figures, but is it reasonable to expect people at evening to be by themselves without a backup, a local backup? Because Sheriff first was in here, and I know that they always try to pad their numbers. He said they're short 5 sheriff deputies right now.
Okay.
So, and we don't know where those sheriff deputies will be at any one time.
I understand that.
So I know there's a lot of state troopers in Wayne County, but they're also not guaranteed to be in the area. So if we vote on your proposal, we're saying that most of the time there'll only be 1 officer on duty for most of the time.
You can have, I'm looking at Friday night, Saturday night. I mean, I don't know, I'm just assuming this, Monday through Thursday is not a lot of things going on, but maybe Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the weekend.
We had the number of
Yeah.
calls.
Sure, yeah, I never have been a supporter of minimum staffing on a collective bargaining agreement, because there's times you don't need more than 1 cop. But if your collective bargaining agreement says that you have to have 2 officers, and it's an October night when it's raining and the only thing that's happening is the leaves are settling deeper on the curb, you can't give the guy that wants to go home the night off because you have a minimum staffing. So no, I have never been a supporter of minimum staffing. But by the same token, if you want to have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week police department, you need to look at how many people it takes to staff that. And the use of part-timers is fine and dandy. You can get some talented people, especially if you reach out to retirees. But my experience is you're not going to get a person that's going to commit to working every Tuesday and Wednesday night, 10-hour shift. Or that they're going to work a daytime when they have a real daytime job, or they're gonna work at night when they have a real night job. And then you also have to remember that you reach to your full-timers because they're required to work to cover your holidays. You're not gonna get a part-timer to come in and work on Christmas or Thanksgiving or New Year's or Mother's Day or Father's Day. But if you pick up the phone and you want a cop because your long-lost cousin showed up for Christmas cheer that you haven't seen, and let me assure you the holidays are busy.
Right.
You want to have some bodies there that's going to come down and respond. So I think, do you need 8 people to staff of 24/7 police department, 8 full-timers and some part-timers? Maybe not, because especially if the town, when they come over as new employees, did away with the minimum staffing requirement, you could look at a schedule, and you could look at a schedule where you didn't have 2 people on every day for those hours. But by the same token, from a realistic standpoint, you're not going to do it with 4 full-time officers and 4 part-time. And I think that you can look to Macedon, who is doing it now, and see how they're doing it and where they are sacrificing their coverage.
So
And
what-
remember that Macedon does not have an urban area. Yes, they have Walmart, which has a lot of calls for service, and those calls for service are mostly investigative calls. And you have, what was the other?
Got Lowe's.
You have Lowe's
You got
that's
$1
right
million
there,
bucks a year for
and they got a ton of money. Jim, they have a ton of money. You know, their police chief's riding around in a better car than my wife does, you know what I mean? But
That's your fault.
they've got a ton of money.
Yeah.
We don't, and you have to look at that. But if this committee is going to represent 24/7 coverage, you have to be realistic about how you're going to schedule it and cover it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You brought up Clyde. Clyde has all part-time. Are they 24/7?
No, they're not.
They're not.
No.
Jim, do you?
23/7? What, 22/7? What,
Yeah, they're left alone there for periodic periods.
has there been a problem?
Not that I know of.
Well, my point is that, and do they have a problem finding part-timers? Is their policy not to have 24/7, or they only don't have 24/7 because they can't find part-timers?
They got plenty of part-timers.
So their choice is not to have 24/7.
Yeah,
That's my question.
I would say so.
That's the
I mean,
question
I
I'm
don't know.
asking.
I talked to the chief down there, he's retired now, Billy Carr, and he said, you know, like, we're going with all part-timers. And basically, the part-timers partake, like, geez, I need Wednesday off, can you cover me? So, I mean,
There's a
it's
give
got
and
to
take.
be a
It's not a-
scheduled
it's not a-
nightmare, but it seems to work out.
Well, my point is, I'm trying to make is if they don't have a problem with part-timers for 24/7 and maybe they're lacking 8 hours a week, and the proposal on the table is 4 full-timers, so really our part-timers that we hire, if this was a proposal that was going to be implemented, they don't need to cover 24/7. So it should be easier to find part-timers, and it should be easier for them just to fill the slots where there's a vacancy and have double coverage when it's necessary. That's how I see it.
So what hours do they, in Clyde, do they leave
I don't know,
vacant?
I can find out.
But I think it's important, I want you to go back and come back with how you would schedule. Talk to the chief, talk to the people in Clyde. If we want 24/7, then that's the recommendation you brought forward to us. I want to know how we're going to cover 24/7. You know,
I understand.
I know that there's only 168 hours in a week, and 104 is but scheduling it sometimes isn't just that easy. So what I would like you to do is to sit down, and if Chief said that you won't be able to do it with 4 part-timer, 4 full-time, and 4 part-timers, let him show you how you can't. Okay? And then come back next week after you discuss this and say, after looking at all the figures, maybe we need 4 full-timers and 6 part-timers, or whatever. But I would like you, because it's too easy to just throw figures out.
I understand.
So all I want is to sit down and say, if Chief says you can't do it, and you say you can, sit down and go over the schedule for a week and say, this is how we would do it with 4 full-timers and 4 part-timers.
Well-
And then if he says that's not gonna work because, then you will know what the reason is. And then you guys come back next week and say, we've discussed it and we both agree, or 2 out of the 3 of us agree, that this is the figure we can live with.
That's fine. And let me just, can I say a couple words? All I know is that, you know, if you crunch the numbers, there's 168. So when you had 8 hours, and I 10 times that amount, 80 hours with 4 part-timers. So I don't know how the chief schedules stuff. I can go back to Clyde and find out.
Yeah.
But let me also say this. Have you ever called for backup that the sheriff hasn't come?
Well, you know,
I mean, I
No.
hear it on the monitor all the time.
I called for a backup last week when I was trying to arrest somebody, and backup took almost 10 minutes, and I got my ass handed to me. And I got 40 years experience. And I've been off sick the last 2 days healing up from it because I don't believe in going on the dole. And that happens. And the guy that got there to save me, which he literally did, he had to apologize for driving excessively fast through the village because he felt that he was driving recklessly to get there because he knew how the clock was ticking. And it happens all the time.
Well, we just saw it in Masson the other night where 2 police cars chased a guy out of Flaherty's and he ended up going and crashing his car in Rochester by St. John Fisher, and the guy jumped out of his car and went over and threw a woman out of her car, and they had to, you know, and they had 2 people on in Masson and they couldn't catch them. So that's why sometimes things that sound good don't work the way you think they would when you put it actually on paper and put it. So that's all I'm asking.
If you take the proposed 4 men at 40 hours and 4 men at 20 hours, well, it equates to 80 hours a week part-timers. It doesn't matter if you have 10, like Chief said, or you got 20.
Right.
It's only going to be 80 hours a week. If you do that and you overlap it, there's an overlapping of 72 hours a week if you do the full capacity of the 80 hours, and it equates to almost 10 and a half hours a day of having 2 people on.
So it sounds
I'd
reasonable.
love to see a schedule.
Well, I know that's.
No,
I'm just saying that's possible that those numbers. That's what it
Yeah.
equates to.
So-
That you'll have double
So that's
people
all
for
we're
10 hours.
asking, is if we can sit down and show where that would not work, and if you could talk to the people in Clyde and find out what hours they don't have police coverage. If we feel that we can not have police coverage from 3 to 6 in the morning,
Are they on the same deal where they gotta have 2 people on from 4 to 3?
No, they don't have a
They don't
collective
have a-
bargaining agreement that.
So they only got 1 officer on.
There's some, you know, I gotta be honest with you, I'm really not familiar with the operation down in Clyde. Sometimes they have a couple of guys, sometimes they have 1 guy.
I know every time I go down there on a call, it's always 1 guy.
But I think it would also be beneficial, you know, reach out to Clyde and see what they're doing. I think it would also be beneficial to look at Masson and see what they're doing.
How many villages? Sorry. How many villages in the Wayne County have overnight police officers?
Lyons, Palmyra,
Newark.
Clyde, Newark,
Like 4?
Masson's a town. Sodas has an evening patrol.
But after midnight.
Wolcott has, I'm not sure what Wolcott's got. I think they have till 2, 3 in the morning, unless something's going on, they'll stay longer.
I think even Solis Point's got something, don't they?
Oops, Sodas Point's got a seasonal department,
oh,
night patrol.
I agree with Jim. The problem areas that we've had in the past seem not to be there, but there's certainly enough drug activity to make up for any alcohol activity that's not taken on. But so if you could do that, come back next week with a low report. And if you can agree on the number of personnel, we will vote on accepting a proposal next week.
Well, Sergey, can I recommend that we look at this twofold? The one big question, does the committee want to recommend 24/7 police coverage? I mean, the committee recommended 24/7 fire driver coverage and
Right.
then looked at mechanics to provide that service. Does the committee want 24/7 police coverage and then look at the mechanics of how to provide that service? Or is the committee still undecided on that?
Well, I always thought we wanted 24/7. Just because other communities don't have it, I don't know if that makes it right for us. But I think that it's something that, Dave, what do you think?
Okay, wait, just